Halo Wars 3 ideas. So there's a lot of rumors right now that Halo Wars 3 is in the works for Halo Infinite. Now, I'm not sure if that is true or if that's not true. I would like to give you guys the take on what I would like to see, and I would like to see what changes or what you agree or disagree with. And I have thought about it for a while now, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with the ideas that I came up with, and I think it would make for a very successful game. Like, I think it would make a lot of money, and I think the players in the community would just absolutely love it. So just to jump right into it, I think Halo Wars 2 should be copied and pasted to Halo Wars 3. And now, before anyone rejects to that, I want to bring up a lot of other game titles. You got Call of Duty, Halo, Halo Reach, a lot of those other platforms. They might not have been copy and pasted. They may have been used with different engines. Maybe there's a different engine for, that we could use for Halo Wars 3 that's just better, more efficient for the game developers to make it easier, sure. But I think the assets should be brought over so that way, A, there's less work to do, and also there's so many reasons to do it. But if you think about Tekken or other successful games like Call of Duty, Halo, like, they made a platform and a brand for themselves, right? So Halo Wars is no exception. Like, Halo Wars 1 and Halo Wars 2, there is so many similarities between those two games, and there is a brand built, and they're beloved games that have done really well for RTS category for console. So I would like to see that Halo Wars 2 basically be copied and pasted, but we can do so much to it to make it an entirely different game. And these are the categories. I'm going to make some bullet points, and then we can go more deeply into each one, whether you agree or disagree. So some bullet points that I would like is the leader power reform. So let's say we did you get 3 passive leader powers per leader in the game. You would get let's say Tech 1, you unlock one. Tech 2, you unlock another. Tech 3, you unlock another, right? And a lot of leaders already have passive leader powers, so you don't even have to be all that creative. Like, for example, you already got combat repair and vehicle symbiotes that you could apply to Colony, and then you just, boom, one more. Next step, all leaders should have at least one unique unit. For example, Colony Skitter. Arbiter is going to be your Phantom. Now, you can change the units in the barracks, the vehicle depot with Johnson or whatever. I would really like to see the Elephant come back for Cutter, like, to be able to build infantry and make a barracks in the middle of the map or next to somebody and have it that is a phenomenal idea. I think that upgrades, every unit in the game should have 2 upgrades minimum. And I also would like to see more units come back, like the Rhino. As for leaders, I think all the same leaders, all 16 leaders from Halo Wars 2, copy and paste it over. This is going to make it where we can focus on making the game better, right? Instead of having all this brand new content. But here's the thing. I think you need to add 8 new leaders for the Flood, right? And then I think for other leaders that you should add is you got to add the Prophet of Regret. There's too many people that want to play and see the Prophet of Regret. I would argue it's the most played leader for Halo Wars 1. I'm not going to say it's the best leader, it's probably the worst leader. But that being said, people absolutely loved him, especially because a lot of the casual community goes into the later game. He's flying around beaming people's bases. It was excellent. And then if we could get the Prophet of Regret, I think that's going to be a seller. As for maps, the maps need to be more unique. They need to have differences for, what if you took Frontier, for example, and you put the 2 healing spires, you took them out and you put it right in the center of the map, right? Like, if you just did that one change, that map is a completely different map and it plays different. So another thing is power nodes are cool, but in Halo Wars 1, we had reactors and supply elevators. So it's like we bring back the supply elevator and double the performance of the power nodes. So that way there's half of the amount available, but they're twice as effective. So that way you're getting about the same if you're doing map control, but you're also getting the supply elevator as well. So that's going to make map control even more dominant. And I think the passives per tech level is going to make teching up more dominant as well, because frankly, like, you could pretty much play almost entirely on Tech 1, hyper aggressive, and you can, it makes it where Tech 2 is, you know, really hard to reach. It's like, for you to go for it, it's like, yeah, you can, but you're probably going to lose on your way there. Whereas, you know, anyways, so to the next one is, like, I would like to see, but yeah, like to see more unique units. Another thing is, what about the health bars? Like, can we have it where we have, instead of just a health bar, if I click on the unit, like, let's say a Banshee. Let's say the Banshee has 250 health. Well, can I see, like, 176 health out of 250? Because I know the game understands the numbers. It is a number. It's just, it's translated into a health bar. So what I'm saying is, if you click A on a building, like a base or a pad or a unit or anything like that, then I think you should see the number alongside of it. This number out of this. Another thing is, most of the community just wants to be able to talk to the development team, and I think Postums and Rinsey for Halo Wars 2 did a great job for the most part, and I think Halo Wars 2 is inherently balanced. I mean, obviously there's a lot of balance issues for Halo Wars 2, but if we're comparing it to, like, a lot of other RTSs, and let's just say Halo Wars 1 because they're so similar, I think that, yeah, like, Halo Wars 1 isn't balanced at all. Like, there's so many glitches, and there are glitches in Halo Wars 2, but only the higher up community really knows about them. So they're very, you know, unspoken per se. But as for, so just running through those bullet points, and I have a lot more as well, but just for those, for starters, what do you guys just immediately are, like, turned off about? Like, just absolutely no for this aspect of whatever I've said.
I think everybody just wants a flood leader. That's what
100%.
I hear. That's what you see on the Reddit. It's it's like, are we completely copying, like, StarCraft now? Are the flood gonna have creep spread? You know, what are they gonna have, like, just base? For the flood, it's just so weird because it's all their vehicles are just going to be infected versions of those vehicles. Just all their units are going to be infected versions of those units. Whereas, like, I feel like if you throw in a the AI, the Forerunner faction, you could, there's, like, it's a completely brand new faction. It's completely brand new assets. I mean, I think the Flood would be easier because they already have Flood assets in Wars 2, and you're talking about porting in all the assets, which I think that would be fine. It would be cool to see, I guess, what the Flood LPs are. It's probably going to be a lot of, like, converting your enemy's units to your units, which
Sure.
I guess that's fine. But, like, what's going to make it Flood other than it just being a skin, you know? What's going to make it discernibly, this is the Flood leader? Is it going to be the spread of creep? Is it going to be, like, polyps that you plant on the map, and then that, like,
Sure.
I don't know, that converts shit? Like, that, I would love to see something unique if they are going to do the Flood. Or go ballsy, just make 4 factions. Have the Flood, the Banish/Covenant, the UNSC, and the Forerunner, the
Yep.
Forerunner mech kind of style. That would be really dope.
Yeah, I think that should
yeah.
be an expansion. So, like, let's say a year after the game comes out, have, like, a whole nother faction of leaders come out as a Forerunner expansion for $40 or $50. Let's say $30 to $40. And I think, like, with them coming out with, I mean, I know that's a lot of money, but at the same time, like, that's a huge update. And I think that they should space those out to gain more money, because essentially we really need the Halo Wars team to get paid really well, but we also want everyone to be happy for the money that they're spending. And I'll go over more money ideas later, because I have a whole ton of money ideas for them. But I think for the Forerunners, maybe done separately, like a year later, have this whole faction released. And you can be working on it since release. But I think at minimum, you have to give them a new faction, like the Flood, for example. And I think the Flood is more dominant among the people as an idea and a want than the Forerunners, but I do think the Forerunners would be insanely cool to have in the game, and there's so many unique things. I don't want to see the Flood be building units like Hornets, infected Hornets, or infected Warhogs. That would be so silly. the Flood units have to be purely the Flood. And I know that that might be a hurdle. I don't really know a lot about the lore. I don't really play campaign very often, or at all, pretty much.
It's a lot of pure forms, yeah.
So yeah, like basically a lot of pure forms, and that they can take over. I would like to see the Flood, like the little swarms. Maybe what if you did that as cannon fodder, right? Like, and then you could make a absolute astronomical amount or something like that. And that could be their grunts. Or just say, hey, they're better than cannon fodder, so they're going to be 50 supplies for 2 population, which is still the cheapest unit in the game, besides cannon fodder. But at the same time, you have to pay at least something for it. But that would be kind of cool to like just constantly be swarming your enemy with swarms, because essentially that's what the Flood does. That's what they do. And then they mix in other things with it, which, you know, you can, I don't know what you, instead of saying vehicles, air, you know, you can have air Flood, but I think for vehicles you would just have heavy Flood or something like that instead of vehicles, and then you would have light Flood for infantry, and then, you know, I think that that would be 100% acceptable. But you know, and look through all the different Flood units through the Halo lore, and I'm sure that you can find a plethora of items to choose. I'm just not one of those people that are super into it and have a lot of knowledge on it. But I think the Flood has to be put in the game. I would like to see all 16 leaders from Halo Wars 2, just because you can easily make, you know, more leaders if you want, but I want them to really focus in on the Flood. And if you think about this, right? So the passive abilities for the leaders, getting in Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, none of your leaders are going to be the same. Like, none of the Banished or UNSC leaders are going to be the same if you automatically get the passives on the tech level. And it's going to make it where you can tech up and be competitive. So, like, that's going to be cool. Another thing is, I think that so I have 2 ideas as for UNSC and Banished. I either think that the leader wheel should have either a second page by holding right trigger, or you should have just 1 extra leader power, and what it's going to be is in the center of the leader wheel. So instead of you moving the stick around, you just click on the center. And the ones that I would choose, if you're not doing the second page and you're just adding 1 additional thing, is all UNSC should have Pelican transport, all Banished should have teleport, and Flood will have to be thought of, you know, as a whole. But I think that that would be really cool as 1 extra leader power as a staple. It's not broken. It just allows everyone to have mobility. Another thing is, I think that if we did add a second page instead by holding right trigger, what if for UNSC you did Restoration, Pelican, Lotus Mines, right? So that way it takes it off the leader wheel. So you don't need those leader powers anymore on the leader wheel. You can use them for other things, but they're very basic. It's you get to, you know, Pelican and Resto, Lotus Mines. As for Banished, what if we did Engineer Swarm and you did Teleport and Plasma Mines, you know, or something like that. I think that that would be cool. And then if you just think about the leaders, if you took all of those 3 leader powers away from the leaders, and you took the passives away from the leaders, if you still had the same leader wheel, then you could fill it up with a lot new and innovative ideas for new leader powers. So I think that that is inherently going to make every leader more unique. I think they're too similar right now. There are definitely highlight differences for, you know, leader to leader, but essentially all Banished can be played similarly. Same thing with UNSC. So it's like, yeah, their hero units is like the main difference, and the leader powers obviously. But at the same time, if they get inherent passive abilities and every single leader is different, then that's going to make them a lot different. On top of that, if you have, you know, not only the passive abilities making them different, but you have this bigger pool of leader powers that are pretty much all different, because your Resto, your Lotus Mine, your Pelican Transport, etc., those are all on the second page that every single leader has as a staple. I think this is going to inherently make the gameplay a lot different from Halo Wars 2. And before you think like, oh, well, the passive ability would be broken, I think what you're going to do is you're comparing the new game to the old game. And if you if you compare the new game to the old game, obviously, like, the Halo Wars 3 characters done this way would just obliterate the Halo Wars 2. But if they all are elevated like that at the same time, there will need balance patches, obviously, just like any game. But I think it's absolutely doable, and I don't think that it would take as much time, research, and development to come out with, but still sell this as a brand new game, especially if you're redoing all the Halo Wars 2 maps to make them more unique. And what I'm saying is just add like supply elevators, take out power nodes, put like a healing spire. Like, just these little changes will change the way these maps are played. And then so there's 10 maps for Halo Wars 2, and I think if we're not including Fort Jordan, so I think just take that number and double it. So you need 10 new maps, but at the same time reform the old maps. So that way people have the nostalgia of Halo Wars 2, and then they can have the Halo Wars 3, the brand new different maps. And I think at minimum 3 maps should be adjusted to introduce the Flood. And you might actually do 3 new maps for literally introducing the Forerunners as a preemptive thing that you could do for the next year when the Forerunner expansion comes out. And I think that would be just a masterfully done plan, and I think people would love it. And that changes Halo Wars 2 a lot. And I have other ideas as well that we'll get into for changing the gameplay, and I think that would make more money and people would want to play it even more. But so what do you think about those bullet points on maps and Flood?
Stronghold upgrade complete.
Anybody? Okay.
Ooh. I mean, yeah, there's a lot there.
Has units in the air.
The healing spires things would be interesting, but I feel like it would. Oh man, it would. It's a weird concept because if it's too potent of a healing spire, it'd almost make it a little difficult to work around the maps. Like you wouldn't be able to enjoy it because you're just going to be sitting in that ring the entire fight. So I'm not. If it's on the sides, I kind of like it is for those other maps. I can kind of enjoy that. That is interesting. I do enjoy that piece.
Sure.
And I am interested to see how they use it. But
yeah, you could definitely make it less potent, right? Like you could make it where it doesn't heal as fast. And I'm not saying on every map, by the way. I'm just saying that that's an idea. Like Halo Wars 1, Frozen Valley, you had a healing spire in the center. It didn't heal as fast as these, but it was in the center of the map, and that made the map a lot different, So keep going.
Oh, I was gonna say. So specifically with the Flood, that is a difficult concept. Like, and I don't even think it's fair to necessarily create like. I don't even think it's fair to create like maybe a unit like the cannon fodder in some sense. I mean, I think it needs to go down that route, but maybe not specifically like the cannon fodder because I think
Just
it's
make it like grunts.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be if you make them any stronger than the cannon fodder at that low of a cost, I think it's going to be too overbearing. I think you have to have some balancing with that's going to make it a little more viable because there are some units that are like in that lower position, like let's say like Yap heavy grunts, which do get a bit overbearing towards the later stages of the game, and they're cheap, like they're so much cheaper than the other units. Yeah, which is like, oh man, like it'd make it very difficult to work with.
And before anybody calls us out on that, hold on, I'm gonna let you talk. Heavy grunts are cheaper than grunts because they're 120 supplies for 3 population, which is 40 supplies per population, whereas a grunt is 100 supplies for 2 population, which means it's 50 supplies per population. So if you took 50 and multiplied it by 80, or if you took 40 and multiplied it by 80, the 40 is going to be cheaper. So overall, whenever you're building these units, they are cheaper, but they do require you to have a raid camp. But anyways, keep going.
Yep, that's a good point. I'm glad you addressed that one. Another one was the Prophet. I do want to see him come back, but I really, really don't. And the reason why is he's going to be either completely worthless or he's going to be completely broken. There's no in between. There's no balance for that. I don't want to see him come back for that reason. Even though I really enjoyed him, there's just, if he goes in the sky, the balancing is just, there's no way to properly, I think, tweak that, in my opinion. I think a sky leader is just going to be, it's too much. It's way too much. I think the only reason it worked for Wars 1 was because vampires just kept it in check so well that it completely put it in its place, and that was the only reason I really think it was fine in Wars 1. But it doesn't have a place in Wars 2 and 3. I don't think.
I think that you know, you can redo him however you want. Like maybe you don't make him a sky leader, or maybe he stays on the ground. I think that he needs to be a sky leader, and I think he needs to be in the game. Not for the like, and you might nerf him to where he's the worst leader again. Don't get me wrong. Like you could do that, but I think that it has to be a thing because there's too big of a pool of people that want it, and really we need to make sure that we cater to all people, like all people for the most part, or
That's a fair point.
the biggest
Yeah.
pool that we can, because the bigger a pool that you're catering to, the more people are going to pay for the game. The more successful the game is, the more likely we are to have continuing support for the game and to have a fourth generation. So I think that we
Okay.
really should.
I agree. Yeah.
Do that.
So how about maybe we can come to a compromise on this. Maybe not an air unit. Maybe still make him a ground unit and have to follow through all the terrain. But when he gets that third upgrade, he hovers now, right? He's faster. He's way faster, and he hovers, and he still uses his little beam. You know, like that. Cool things
Okay.
like that. I think that would be a good compromise.
So like he can't hover over walls, is what you're saying?
So you can't. Yeah. So same dimensions as a normal ground unit for the most part, right?
But he's
you
just-
have to adhere to the terrain.
He's like
right?
shipmaster
But
fast.
he's like he's way faster, right? So he starts out slow and he gets the flying, but it's not in the air. He's got to still abide by the terrain. He just gets a nice speed boost. I think that'd be a
Or-
decent balance for it.
Or another thing you can do is you can make him really slow but in the air, but I don't think whatever speed he is on the ground, I think he has to stay the same in the air if he was to transfer to the air. Otherwise, people are just going to complain really bad. But I don't know, man. Like at the same time, you could also just make it where he's weaker, where his shield and health isn't so much. So Reaver or Wolverines, he's more susceptible to. But then, like I mean, it's all a balancing issue, and I think it's going to be a challenge regardless of how they do it. I don't necessarily like the fact of like I kind of like the fact, but at the same time I don't think it's going to go over well with the community. I think the competitive community would agree with you, right? I think like the competitive side to me is like, yeah, that's a good idea, like that's but at the same time the casual community, I don't see them agreeing with that. I think they like flying over, beaming stuff, and then retreating. Like he was the worst leader in the game for Halo Wars 1, but people just love doing that, and I think that was because, I mean, it's kind of like vultures in Halo Wars 2, where it's like, okay, well, once you understand engineers and reavers, like, I mean, honestly, people don't really have a chance with vultures, but I mean, at casual levels, they're like, oh, that's the most broken thing ever, you know. So, anyways, so but I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
That the balance team should go over.
Yeah. There's definitely a different, like, a variety of different ways you could balance it out. And I'm seeing, like, how good that could be.
I think people would just be like, what if we did this? What if we did like something similar to what you're saying, where he can't go over walls, right? But he could jump off cliffs. Like, so
That's fair.
like imagine if Halo, you know, Bedrock, for example, you know, the watchtowers or whatever, where like you can go up, but what if he could just straight off the cliff? You know what I'm saying? Like, and because he's hovering, like he just lands.
Yeah.
But he doesn't hover high enough to go over a straight wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that would be an interesting change. That would be so unique, and I think people would honestly be like okay with that. And that does let him run away
like
from
that.
things really well. But at the same time, he has to pick and choose where he's running away instead of just running straight away in any fashion he wants. So I think that would be really, really interesting. I think you could do that, and I think people would be okay with that, and I think that would be a compromise between the two. So it's like he basically, everything he said, he's really fast, he hovers, but he can go over cliffs but not over walls. Like he could just drop down, but he can't go up. You know, like that's. I think that would be a fair compromise, because that's still a really big amount of mobility. Like that's like if you're talking about a flying Cansano, you know, like that's or a flying
Yeah.
shipmaster. I mean, we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
like that's a lot of mobility, man. Like that's yeah, that's a lot. So I think
There's definitely
I
some
agree.
fun ways to balance it for sure.
Yeah,
It's got
so,
potential, especially with the extra. Like it would pull a lot more. For
but
sure.
he
It'd
has to
very
be in
fun.
the game. Like
Yeah,
I don't think people
I think
understand.
he
Like he
needs. I
has
think
to
he
be.
needs to be a DLC leader for sure. He needs to be somebody
Exactly.
released later. He needs to be like included with the flood, like that suggestion.
Or
that would pull a lot of. I think that'd pull a lot of attention and income if they did it like that.
I think that they should have him come out like Forge, where he was like the free leader, or like the first DLC that came out with the game, or even if you make him
Well,
like $5 or something like that,
I
because
think
the amount
I
of
think
people that'll buy him.
I think put him a little later, and it doesn't have to be very late. It could be like, not I don't want it to be Forged because that's the initial release, right? The reason I think it needs to be a little later is because if they wait just a little longer, like it could be the next leader, like maybe Kinsana or whatever, the next leader on release, you know, like the whatever the next one would be, like that would be his spot, and it's like, wow, like they just released the Prophet, what, like.
I get the impact that you're saying, but I really
Yeah.
want to sell the game as hardcore initially, and I think just having profit on you know, an exclusive photo or whatever for the advertisement would just be you know, if you have Flood and the Prophet on the face of this thing, the amount of people that you're going to, or the amount of copies you're going to sell is going to be, you know, incredible. And I think we really need that to be able to, because like the initial sales of a game is like huge. Because all your reviews and everything else is going to be based off of it. So I understand what you're saying, whereas like this is going to be a super impactful thing that you can do. But I also think there's other Covenant leaders that I'm probably not going to be able to name, but you know, you could go as simple as having all 3 different prophets, because I'm pretty sure there's 3 different prophets, and you can release the other 2 later, you know, as DLC. Sure. But yeah, I think for an impactful opening, if you show like the Prophet and you show the Flood, and you gotta think, like, whenever we're copy and pasting assets, like, they don't have to recreate the whole game, but I'm saying take your game and make it even better. And there's so many differences that I've stated that this is an entirely new game. You can't just say, oh, this is a big DLC. It's like, no, this is an entirely new game at this point. And then you could do the Forerunner for your 1 year, you know, DLC, kind of like Awakening the Nightmare, but bigger. Whereas, and you could add a campaign to it as well, like a campaign piece to it. But I think it should be about $30-$40, which is, I think Awakening the Nightmare was 20, I think. But I think that was 2 liters. I'm talking 8 liters, you know. So, or you could release, let's say, 6 liters with that, and then have 2 additional DLC Forerunners after that, so you can even milk it for a little bit more, but everyone is still very satisfied with it. I think that would be another option. I'm just trying to make sure that the gamers win, but also the developers win as well, because everyone has to be happy for this game to be successful. Like, you can't just always everything should be free, everybody should get it. You know, you can't do that and make the gamers like abundantly happy, because what's going to happen is the development team is going to fall off, and then the gamers won't be happy because there's no development team behind the game anymore. So it's like the gamers need to support the developing team as well. And here's another big point. I can't wait to tell you this one. I think that this is going to be the biggest change to the Halo Wars 3 if they do this, and it's, what if you could customize the color of your units, right? Like, and base, like, free, like you don't pay for it. But I'll get into microtransactions for this in a second. But like, if you could change, like, I want my units and base to be black, right? But as for what player you are, you're gonna have an outline of whatever. You could be red, blue, you know, whatever player you are, sure. And your outline is always going to be the color that you're designated. But you can change the color of your units to have this customizable thing. But instead of changing, I think
Mini base complete.
I kind of would even like to go as far to say, like, you know, change your vehicles to this color, change your infantry to this color, or even if you did every unit, I just feel like every single unit being customizable might be a little too much on the development team. But if it's not, that would be insane. And then have DLC, like microtransactions of different skins that you can put, like the infantry package, Flame Edition or something like that. And then you could say that's, let's say that's, for example, $2. And then you have the vehicles Flame Edition, $2. The Air Flame Edition, $2. And then you have a package of the Flame Edition, $5. And I know that's like the development team is just listening to me and they're like, that is way too low. Do you know how much time is put into that? And it's like, I understand there's probably a lot of time, but at the same time, like, you're going to sell it to such a massive amount of people at that point, and everyone's going to love it. And since it's so cheap, everyone can buy it. So you're going to sell it to more people. So it's like, it's not as impactful as each sale, but it's going to be more sales. And the thing of it is you're making more people happy, which keep more people on the game, which will make you more money in the future. And it's like, and that's just one skin idea. Like, you could do tribal, you could do like, what if you did like older generations of UNSC? Or like, what if you did the Halo Wars 1 skin where everything looks like Halo Wars 1? What if you did...
you could do like a cool like Forerunner thing.
Yeah, dude, like there's just there's an endless amount of skins that you can do. And the thing of it is, it doesn't change the gameplay. Like, it's not pay to win. But
No, but I do think I do think people would buy it at $10 though. And I think they would buy it at still the high demand, because cool skins are worth 10 bucks. I think
maybe for
a
faction of skin, like maybe a pack,
like,
but
especially
I
if
don't
they're
think
really
individual.
cool and the details that you're talking about. I don't think 10 is unreasonable for the whole package. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. So
well, definitely don't. Well, I'm thinking we're catering really close to the line of Infinite, right? Whereas like Infinite really messed up because it's like, oh, this skin is $20 or this skin's $15.
Well,
and it's like, and people absolutely hated it. And it's like, because there's a lot of people that want to buy every single skin in the entire game. And what I'm saying is like, so, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying $10 is not doable. I think that you can do $10, but you're right at the cusp of like, you're getting too expensive. So it's like, I think that $10 is still really great for a package deal. So like, if you're doing, let's say, infantry vehicles and air unit flames,
that's what I was getting at. That's what I was.
That could be
$10.
$10.
That's what I was getting at. Because you're saying like a $5 for the package deal. I'm saying 10. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. So
I think for all the units like that.
And I like the idea of being able to customize every single unit. Like, what if my locusts are like black with flames? Like, that'd be cool. Like, and then another thing is like, what if you like Wovlu? Take it out. No skull for Wovlu. You need to find a different skull for it. But I think it should be a DLC in a way for people to, or it's a skull that you can get and then you can use it as your customizable item for your locust. And I think customizable units is really a huge thing. That's going to be so amazing for people that are playing Halo Wars 2 if they can customize.
You can make a lot of money off that,
dude.
Especially with Wovlu.
Stop worrying about blitz and blitz cards. It's like no one cares about that. Give the people skins. And by the way, if anyone at 343 is listening, please take these ideas and use them. I'm never gonna say anything. I'm never gonna give y'all trouble about it. If y'all need help with it, I would help you with that game for free, just so that way we got a really good product. But and don't get me wrong, I think that Metalloid, with all his stuff that he's going through and rebalancing the game, I bet he would have like a ton of things to say about how to balance it better. But I think that most of stuff that we know, like all of us as a community know about the game, is going to have to be scrapped for balancing right now. Because if you do all those leader power changes, the map changes, like by that time it's a whole new game. Like you're just going to have to, you're going to have to rebalance. It's going to take time. You're going to have trial and error by releasing patch notes. another thing is, I think people want to be able to communicate with the development team directly. So I think that, don't get me wrong, I think the forums with Halo Waypoint originally was really nice. The fact that we can kind of talk, that was good. I like it. So either do that again or do it better. So I think that another thing is, what if we could see all of those updates but in the game menu? Like, what if we go to extras and it was just this page that shows you all the previous patch notes of the game, and it shows you how they're changing units and stuff? That should be in the game. You shouldn't have to go to a foreign website that will eventually be taken down because no one wants to pay for the domain. It should be in the game itself, where you could flip through the pages of patch notes and you could see it going all the way dated back to the very first time. The community wants to be able to communicate with the developers, and I think the developers being able to just give us an ear and hear us out, which I know they do that in more of a silent setting, but you need to make sure that the people understand that you're listening. Like, they need to know that you're literally reading and listening to their words, because it just means a lot to them emotionally, and they're going to endear the game. Like, for example, I play a game called Night of the Dead. Like, we had an issue, and within 48 hours I got a personal message back saying, thank you for your request, we looked into it, the patch is going to be up later tonight and it should be fixed. And then it's like, that message, and you could even publicly reply to it, that way other people get to see the message, so that way they know that you directly replied to a player, and then pin it at the top, so that way everyone on the forum can see it, that you as the developers have answered someone. And that is going to be so impactful to the community, because gamers adore seeing that, and they will be so much more loyal to that game if they know the developing team is right there with them. I think Halo Wars 2 as well, whenever Posums and Renzi was here. And don't get me wrong, I think Halo Wars 2 is inherently balanced. Like, I mean, you can play any leader and do really well with them at almost every single level. Like, how many times have we seen Rockgen go in with Kinsano and win? Like, I mean, the worst leader in the game, he's beating people at his level and he's winning. So it's like, the game is inherently pretty balanced. Now, I'm not saying that there's not better leaders than others. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, there is a hierarchy of leaders. But I'm saying it's close enough to where it can be done at a high level at that. So I think that Renzi and Posums did an amazing job balancing the game. I wish they could have stuck around longer and we could have got a little bit more figured out. But honestly, I think they did an amazing job. And I think that moving forward, we should listen to the community, do our best. I know some people just say Banshees are broken and it makes no sense to people. But, you know, like, you still got to hear people out, you know? Like, I mean, but, yeah, no, I think some great ideas for Halo Wars 3, and I really like the customizable skins. I think that should absolutely be in the game. I think if you guys took these ideas and made a game out of it, it would not only be a successful game, but it would make so much money with microtransactions and DLC leaders. Like, I probably would like. I really like the idea of Profit coming out the same day, but you could actually make people pay for it if they want. Like, so, or you could have like an Ultimate Edition with, like, you get a season pass or something like that, and then, you know, have him separate. Like, I think that should be mandatory almost. Also, keep Firefight, make Firefight better. Blitz, scrap it. No one cares about it. But Firefight, keep it. Great idea. And try to build on it and make it better, because there's a lot of people into it. Any thoughts on that?
No, yeah, I think I just hope they don't undermine the idea of how much money they can make off the microtransactions of the skins, and the customization of the units. I think they could really do a great job of that. That would be phenomenal, honestly.
Yeah, I that is such a chest of treasure for making money that, you know, I mean, they can make so much money off those. Like, if they did the microtransactions like that in Halo Wars 2, they would have killed Halo Wars 2 for money. Like, the Blitz, it's just no one played it. Like, there's like no one cared for the Blitz, especially because they made it paid to win. I'm saying you can have microtransactions, but not paid to win. You can unlock DLC leaders, which you can argue that that's pay to win, but at the same time, they balanced those DLC leaders. And not all DLC leaders were broken. Like, Johnson came out, he wasn't like the best leader in the game or anything whenever he came out. I mean, all the other ones were, but he was like the outlier, so it's like, it's not always like that. But that being said, the balancing team worked really hard to nerf the DLC leaders and bring them back to normal. Now you look at them, Jerome and Consano are the worst leaders in the game. I mean, that's... they're still really fun to play, but they were DLC at one time, and when they first came out, they were the best things that happened to Halo Wars 2. They were like literally the biggest, baddest thing when they came out. But development team balanced the game and, you know, nerfed Consano into the ground. So there you go. Like, now we can't even use Flamehawks because they're terrible. But yeah, no, I think that I really I love the ideas of all this for Halo Wars 3, and I think if someone wanted to pitch the game, or a gaming, a game developer wanted to make Halo Wars 3, this would be the pitch to do it. You can refine it and make it where I think that you can absolutely get 343 in on it if they understand like all these key points, and even make a few other ones, because there's no way I thought of everything. You know, like I bet there's 1,000 other things that you can add to the game. But I think copy and pasting. Oh, another thing, campaign, right? I really like the way Storm Connections did their campaign. Where, for the most part, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things wrong with that campaign. But like the sole idea that you have a history campaign for, let's say, what if you add the Halo Wars 1 and Halo Wars 2 campaigns for the history campaign, and then you had the brand new Halo Wars 3 campaign? You could do that. Or if you could just use, since you copy and pasted Halo Wars 2, just do Halo Wars 2 campaign as the history campaign, and then have the new Halo Wars 3. And since you're copying and pasting all this stuff, I'm hoping that that would be a really easy thing to accomplish for the Halo Wars 2 campaign. It wouldn't take you a lot of time, but I think that would be, there's a lot of people that are into that stuff, where it's like they can go back through, you know, this campaign in this game, and they just love it. I don't understand it, but that they love it. Like, so I think that would be really interesting as well. I think Skulls should kind of go back to the Halo 3 days in a way, where it's like you gotta, I don't know, Halo Wars 1 was pretty cool with it. I haven't really played Halo Wars 2 as much for campaign, so I can't really talk on it, but like I really like the fact that you have to do this stuff in Halo 3. Like, sometimes we had to jump off the map, you know, for, say, walk around, and then we would find this hidden thing. It's like, and as for Halo Wars 2, it seems too easy to get it. It's like, okay, we'll do the optional things, boom, then it tells you where it is, boom, and it's like, it's done. Whereas, like, Halo 3 was like this mythical thing, where it's like, and YouTube wasn't even really a thing back then. Like, I mean, it was, but it was at its infancy stage, you know, where it's like we would YouTube it and like try to find the skulls, and like everyone was trying to figure out, especially the one where you had to like do the musical notes and the, oh man, like, so it's just like the community working together to get the skulls was like really cool. Instead of like, hey, just do these 3 things, they'll give it to you over here. There you go. So I think that would be an interesting change for campaign. But that's just personal opinion, though. I don't know how many people would share that, but I know growing up, like, we had some really cool memories trying to find skulls in Halo 3, where it was just like this mythical item that no one knew where it was. And we knew it existed, but we just didn't know where it was. So it's, and now YouTube is such a big thing that people are going to find it regardless, because once one person out of the millions of people that are playing the game, once one person finds it, they're going to play it on YouTube, and then boom, it's going to get a lot of views. And yeah, like, so I think that it's not that big of a deal, because with YouTube being so dominant right now. Yeah, because I think people are gonna make walkthroughs or like, here's how to get all the skulls in Halo Wars 3, you know, yada yada yada. But yeah, no, like, so that's kind of the things that I would like to see in Halo Wars 3. So it's went over leader power changes, map changes, a new faction, and then I don't know if I would come out with any more Banished or Covenant leaders besides the Prophet. I think what I would do is I would build up a DLC booklet of different leaders, whether it be, you know, Covenant, Banished, Unicy, or Flood, and I would just have those DLC leaders come out where you can sell them for, I don't know, I think we sold them for $5 on this game, you know, so you could sell them for $5 on the next game, which is fine. And then just think about it. If you come out with 8 DLC leaders throughout the course of the game, right? Then you have the Forerunner package. That's 16 more, that's 32 leaders in a game. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't day one. This is over a period of years. Like, I'm not saying day one. Day one, you would have the 16 that are in the game, so you're really not, you're just changing them. You're not really developing them. And then you would create 8 new Flood faction leaders, and then you can make, like, the Prophet. And so you're really only creating 9 leaders instead of, you know, from scratch. And I'm sure that you can create, like, use assets from the Banish for the Prophet. But I would kind of like to look at, like, what if the Covenant base from Halo Wars 1 kind of came back for the Covenant, you know, leaders? That'd be kind of cool. Like, for, like, Prophet? Like, just the looks of it. I don't know. Like, just change the look of it. Like, to make it where it looks different. From, like, Banish and Covenant are different, you know? I don't know. I just think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I haven't thought this one through. I'm just gonna blurt it out and say, like, what if you took teleport away from the Prophet, and then you gave him leader recall back, and the teleporter in front of his base?
Like distraction, yeah.
Yeah, like, so well, you can only use the hero to go back, but you can teleport everything to your hero, like Halo Wars 1 style, and just say the Covenant leaders get that. It's like, that would kind of be cool, but he doesn't get teleport like the Banish does. The Banish could just teleport, but they have to use their, you know, their power or whatever, and they can only do limited distance. Whereas, like, that just makes the Covenant just so much different, and that's the real key point with all the leaders. They have to feel unique. They have to feel different. I don't want, you know, 2 different leaders being so similar where it's just, it feels like I'm playing about the same leader. Like, I could Warthog rush you with any leader in the game, and it's essentially the same thing. I could do it with Forge, I could do it with Jerome, I could do it with Serena, I could do it, like, you know, it doesn't too much matter. And it's like, I want, if you have those passive leader powers and stuff like that, I think it's going to change it so much, because you're not only going to have the passives, but you're going to have unique leader powers as well. Because, I mean, if you think of, like, some of the leaders, they're not that unique for their first couple leader points, you know? It's like, some of them are. Like, I do like the fact that, you know, the rolling economy and heavy metal with Forge, right? But if he already gets that passive ability, I mean, you can make him way more unique, you know, than all the other leaders. So I think that would be important, but I think that it would easily be broken, and there would need to be a concentration of a balanced team in order to actually achieve it, if that makes sense. Because, I mean, you're going to have broken things in the game. You're going to have to fix them. But I think I kind of like the teleporter and the leader recall for the Covenant. Like, I think they should bring that into, and do something else that's cool for the Flood. Like, what if you know, did something else for the Flood? Like, I think that'd be interesting. Like, for example, like, for a vehicle unit, what if you did, like, a thing with the elephant, where it's like, but instead of using an elephant, you just have this Flood unit that literally can pump out swarms from any point on the map. Like, that'd be kind of cool. Like, where it's like a deployable building that can pump, like, basic units out of it. I think that that would be cool. It could do a lot of different rushes and stuff, just like Halo Wars 1. Because if you think about Halo Wars 1, the elephant was never really competitive. There was like one strat you could do on like the docks that was decently okay. But at the same time, for the most part, like, I mean, there's niche scenarios in certain maps, but for the most part, it wasn't really all that great. But I think that would be an interesting thing, and yeah, Cutter would have the ability to get the elephant, which I think is important. Please don't forget that. But like, having the flood unit as a vehicle, like, you know, unit that can do that as well, that would be kind of cool. I genuinely think that would be, I think that would be a vehicle idea for the Swarm. So, is there anything you would like to see in Halo Wars 3 that I haven't stated? Like any fresh ideas that you may have with it?
Oh man, I mean, you covered most of what I was thinking. I would say I would love to have most of the leaders have like a cool, unique unit for sure. But it's not my highest priority at this point. They don't. If the uniqueness declines, but they do a great job with it at this point, I will be happy with how they, because I mean they are unique in their own right, and it is tough for the heroes. But these are a grand variety of great suggestions. I think for me though, I just want to suggest, like, for the profit margins for them especially, just make sure it's released on Steam on the initial release. Like I think that's going to be the biggest. Like I think it needs, like, if they could, I feel like Steam is a great platform for releasing this type of game.
Yeah.
And I also think a follow-up car commercial ad for Halo Wars 3 with the Prophet, Atriox, and Cutter would be hilarious. I think that would be. I think that turned great. I think that they, especially with the one that they had for Cutter and Atriox the first time, that car commercial, I think that was amazing. Like,
That's pretty nice. I don't know if they could do Steam. Like, can you play games on Steam that is cross-platform? I think my State of Decay is played on Steam and it's cross-platform. So yeah, like, if you can, I understand, like, they're trying to sell it on their platform. Steam is actually the best platform to sell any game on, just because they support the developer so much. But I definitely would like to see, I think you're right, I would like to see Halo Wars 3 be able to be purchased on Steam as well as Windows Microsoft Store and be cross-platform between all of them. I think that's very important. Yeah, because other games do cross-platform with Steam, so yeah, that's absolutely doable. I think you're right. I think that would absolutely be a important change to do. So another thing that I was thinking about is, what if the I know you can do your turrets. I think the UNSC need a 4th turret, because there's 4 turrets on, you know, there's 4 turrets on the Banish side, but there's only 3 on the UNSC. And I would like to see, like, a later turret into the game. Maybe you can't build it on Tech 1, but you can do 2 or 3. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, and I'm pretty sure that's why they only have 3. It's like, 'cause it's a hard one. But I did think of this idea to where, like, and I don't think it should be put in the turret slot, but I initially thought it should be put in the turret slot, where it's like you build a wall and it increases the defenses of the base, like the fortifications of the base. And the reason is because the Banish have the shield, but it wouldn't look right to have a shield over the UNSC, I don't think, even though the UNSC does have shields. So I don't know if that would look right. So, like, what if there was, like, a turret that could be a wall that goes all the way around the base, and then the more you build, the bigger it gets. But then I was like, that wouldn't be too, I don't know if that would really look that great with you building it in a turret slot, and it doesn't make too much sense. So what if you had, you know, another upgrade in the center of your base that is just basically fortifications for that one base? Because fortifications in your armory or your war council works for all buildings in the game, but you could also have another one for the UNSC side, so that way they can build a fortifications for that exact base. and just increase the defense that it has. Whereas just to combat the shield generator a little bit on the banish side. And I would like to see the damage of the banish turrets maybe increase just slightly. Not much, but just slightly. And I think that would be really cool. I also don't like the fact that banish have a hard time killing heroes.
The enemy has destroyed one of our buildings.
You know, like
Location confirmed.
where the UNSC they have snipers, which granted like scout meta, hey, you can't really go snipers. But I'm just saying, like, Banish really don't have any good ways. Like, think of, like, Yap Yap or something. Without you over-committing, you're not killing a hero. Like, how are you going to kill Matrox? Like, even a Decimus is hard to kill with Yap, unless you overwhelm him. There's just no inherent way to deal with heroes, I think, with Banish. And Rangers don't do a lot of damage to heroes until their shield goes down. So it's like, I don't know. And that's Tech 2, that's not Tech 1, so it's like, even still. Another thing is, like, the upgrades for the units. Rangers, like, can we get the shield upgrade and then the beam rifle upgrade? Like, 2 upgrades per unit would be really cool. And I think there's so many different units that deserve 2. Like, for example, everyone likes playing with Banshees. Like, what if we had... I'm like uncertain about Plasma Torpedo being a thing. I really don't like the Vampires aspect of being able to get something that makes it where this unit kills all other air units. I think that might be a problem, where it's like, I would rather see, you know, a fuel rod upgrade where it becomes like a Halo Wars 2 Banshee, and then maybe a sacrifice upgrade like from Halo Wars 1, where it's like when it dies, it just goes in and crashes in. I think that those are really cool. I do like the boost ability, but people already complain about the mobility of air, so I don't think that would be really, I wouldn't put it in there. But I don't know, like, I would like to see 2 upgrades on every unit, you know, like the Wraith. Like, what if the first upgrade is the shield, the second upgrade's plasma mortar? I just feel like I definitely like that. It's going to make it harder for people to tech up if all the, you know, they're going to have to choose, do I upgrade this or do I tech up? And if I tech up, I get this second tier passive ability. So it's like, but the units are more expensive, so it's like, yeah, like it just gives more choices for the player without having to come out with too many new things. But I would like to see maybe one new aspect of bases, like, so like I said, the UNSC, let's say, could upgrade fortifications, and you could, and Banish could have their own, you know, thing for their base that they can do or upgrade. I think that would be, it can't be the same thing though, but you can do turret damage upgrades instead, you know, like that way it kind of flip-flops them, where it's like, I think that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much my ideas currently. Do you have any final thoughts on anything that might be a good idea for Halo Wars 3, man?
You covered most of it. I think that's a great variety of different things, especially the Ranger upgrades and the diversity of like the unit upgrades like that. And maybe they could take a look at like the Wolverine and
yeah, absolutely,
the Reaver, and see if maybe they could have some upgraded abilities as well, because that is something I've heard that's been missed. The Wolverine not having its cool little ability upgrade.
The volley ability, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about that though, because like the Wolverines are so.
I am worried about that.
Good
I am
right
worried
now.
about that as well. Yeah. So I'm not too, maybe for me it's maybe fix their turning radius to some degree, maybe, or maybe it's like increase their health
or something like
that. You could increase their speed. I think that's maybe like a slight speed buff wouldn't be a terrible idea, but I don't want them to be overbearing either, right? I just maybe what I want them to have more health, right? Because that wouldn't directly impact like the damage or the performance of the Wolverine, but it would make them more survivable against the unit that they're supposed to counter. And I think maybe some more health would be great with the Wolverines, because they don't have a shield and they can't turn. So yeah, just give them some more health.
Yeah, sure. Like that could be one. I think yeah, 2 upgrades for each unit, and don't get me wrong. I think like each unit is going to be inherently better. You know, because if you can think like, oh well, you know, Wolverines are getting. I don't want to make them too overpowered, but it's like okay, well if the Banshees get sacrificed, you know, they're like even though if they
Yeah.
don't have plasma torpedo, they're going to be better against ground than they are now. It's like they're just not going to be overwhelming the air. I don't think any air unit should just automatically beat all other areas. I didn't like the vampire idea of yeah, or if but I mean yeah. So I don't know if you want to bring the vampire back for the profit or whatever for
No.
just where he can build them. But I honestly think that that unit needs to stay out of the game. It made it where UNSC just never went air. Period. Like just there's so niche amount of scenarios where if like it was just too much. And I think plasma torpedo is a watered down version of it, but I'm not a fan of air being able to just counter other air units. So I think that yeah, like I think that you should yeah, no, I don't know. Like I don't like that. So I think sacrifice would be a lot better. But a lot of people complain about Banshees killing buildings so fast. I mean, it doesn't take a whole army of anything to really kill a base very fast. But Banshees don't take a long time either. So like sacrifice versus a building would just be insane. So even if the Wolverines are there to counter the Banshees, as they die, they're still going to be sacrificing. It's like guarantees to killing the base almost. So like that would be something that is another reason to buff the Wolverines, you know, and also to give the walls to the UNSC, so that way it's slightly harder to kill the base later on in the game. But at the same time, I think maybe a health buff and a speed buff to the Wolverines would be 2 different upgrades, and I think that would be really good. So that way, I don't think they need a damage buff per se, but health and speed would be really nice. Because a lot of people are going to all unit as well, and if they all unit, that speed buff isn't going to matter. You know, like the higher tier community is going to be able to do it effectively, but I think that it'd just be interesting, to be honest.
I think the health buff would mean more for the overall community as a whole, because especially for the people that like higher or lower tier, but especially lower tier, because they will just have a easier time managing the Wolverine if it has more health, especially with all those little variables like that.
I guess against leader powers, because you know Wolverine's just
that too.
Banshees. Like even if Banshees, like I put out a video, air level 3 plasma torpedo with all Decimus all 3 Decimus passives lose to non-upgraded Wolverines. It's like they're already ridiculous. With the health that they have, but at the same time, I think you're mainly talking about versus leader powers, not versus the Banshees
and other deterrents, right? Because you run into obstacles with them sometimes, and they can't like leap out of situations that are bad for them, where they get cut off and they can't turn very well out of those situations. So yeah,
sure.
It would just be more forgiving, especially for the lower tier community, if they had just more health for those kind
so
of
what do you think
areas.
about more health and then give the people the volley ability back? Because even though I don't necessarily agree with the volley ability, I think that it's just iconic for the people that play Halo Wars 1.
That's why I was suggesting it the first time, for its iconicness.
Yeah,
but it can't be very good. It can't be very good. It can't be as good as it was in Wars 1.
Right.
I don't think it deserves a second upgrade.
Yeah, so I think volley ability would be good. I think a health upgrade, and even if you did like a slight speed increase, so like health and speed, to allow people to keep up with Banshees better, because Banshees and Wolverines are actually the same speed in Halo Wars 2, but like since the Wolverines have to go around things, and when I say a slight speed buff, we're talking like 8%. Probably tops, you know, like I'm not saying anything more than that. And that could be your Tech 3 upgrade, like your volley upgrades Tech 2, your Tech 3 upgrade would be your, you know, whatever you want to call it. So I think that would be cool with Wolverines. And I think a lot of units could have upgrades. Like for example, interesting take would be put upgrades on the Scarab. You know, whereas like, and you might be like, oh well, that's too much, you know. But at the same time, the Scarab could be weaker whenever it first comes out, and then you have to upgrade it to what it is. And you might make it a little stronger than what it is today with the last upgrade, but maybe the first upgrade just puts it on the same, you know, path as what it is today, and then you get one upgrade for the most part. But it comes out weaker. So it's like, I think that it just makes it where there's more stuff for people to do, and there's more different paths you can take while playing the game. So two people that are at the similar skill level playing the same leader, they have so many different paths to take that it's less likely they're going to take the exact same one. It just highlights the uniqueness of the leaders and of the players. So I think that would be two upgrades minimum on every unit in the game would be a pretty good idea, I think. Same thing with Hunters, give them 2. Kodiaks having 2. What about the Rhino unit in Halo Wars 1? Have you ever used that?
Upgrade complete.
I have.
Yeah. Isn't that thing cool? Like, why can't we get Rhino units, man? Like, that'd be
It's always
really
an idea.
What if like, take vehicle drop and give it a tier 2, right? And then instead of Kodiaks, you drop in Rhinos as forge, bro. That would be insanely cool. Because like Kodiak, or like take Kodiak drop out completely and just make it drop in regular Rhinos. And it's like, I think that the reason they wouldn't want to do that is because, okay, well, that one leader power for that one person, you know, like I don't know how well that would go. But they can also, like, there's other iconic UNSCs that could come into the game. Like, what about Dr. Halsey or something like that? Could they come in as a commander? Like, I know that she's more of a, but Anders is also more of a tech scientist. So it's like, I don't know, like maybe you could use a big name like that to get more people to play as well, like as a DLC leader later on, you know. But I think 16 leaders starting out, like just copy and pasting those, 8 flood, and then come out with a profit. So you only really have to create 9 new leaders, and then eventually your DLC leaders could just have a DLC section, and then you could just make them UNSC, Covenant, Banish, Flood, whatever you want. And I think having 8 DLCs total for leaders, and then coming out with the Forerunner package of 6 to 8 Forerunners, a year later, that gives you 32 leaders to choose from. That's literally twice the amount of leaders as Halo Wars 1, or I'm sorry, Halo Wars 2. So I think that would, and half of them were already copy and pasted. So it's really, you're only making 16 more, but you're just copy and pasting 16, and you're changing a lot of the things about them. So I don't know. I personally think that all those were great ideas. I think that game would make a lot of money, especially with the skins and the microtransactions. I think they would kill it. I think they would absolutely kill it. So that would be, that's some stuff that I think I would do. I would like to see the maps more unique. Halo Wars 1 did a really good job with all the supply elevators, the reactors. And what do you think about rebel bases? Like, do you like the fact that they had to go around and kill them? I don't know. Like, I kind of like being able to just go out and buy the bases, to be honest.
Yeah, I really like being able to buy my immediate base. I think they could add it as like a third cool base.
Sure.
Maybe not my immediate expo, but yeah, they could definitely add it as like a third one. That'd be like a cool little like middle base or something, or maybe something off to the side, like extra bases.
Sure. Be something to mess around with. But I don't know.
Or just rebels guarding like resources or something. There could be some like other means. It doesn't have to be a base necessarily.
Yeah.
It could be like resource protection or something. Something to fight for in the beginning. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting take, because just to make the maps a little bit more unique, a little bit more going on. I think that would be. I think that would be a great idea. But for the most part, I would just stick with Flood faction, skins, customizable skins. I would redesign the maps and leader powers. Like if I had to like sum up like what I think the next game should really be focusing on, those would be the highlighted um, things. And yeah, I think it would just feel like such a different game if you did that. Because you would have so many unique leader powers for all the leaders. And for example, I think the Serena Hog should be cryo hogs. You know, like they should freeze things. And I would like to see what if you can upgrade the Warthog to have different Warthogs. Like you can have one, you can upgrade it to be like an APC where it carries troops. You can have another upgrade where, you know, it's a Gauss cannon. You can have another Warthog upgrade where it's anti-air or something. I don't know, like because there's so many different types of Warthogs in the Halo universe. It's like it feels kind of weird to have only one. But I don't know, just some thoughts to reminisce on, I guess. But yeah, so I think that's. Is there any final thoughts for you? That's about my
no,
thoughts.
I mean you covered it for the most part. I did but I'll build on the Warthog point with you in here. I really liked the Flame Hogs. I thought they were cool. I like that customization, like where they tried to like make the. And I wouldn't even mind seeing the Flame Hogs again, and then in the next season. I really
Oh, I hope I do.
Yeah, I really liked it. So if they do something like that, like they could have it played with like Ice Hogs or whatever, and the Yappening, you know, the things like that. I really would love to be able to customize like my Warthogs to Flame Hogs instead for a game or something. I think that'd be fun.
Now remember, when I say customize, I don't mean like.
Oh well,
I
you know
mean the
what
design.
Yeah.
I don't
that's,
mean.
That's that's what I meant. Like in some sense, but like. Obviously, that can only be a certain leader.
Yeah, for the flame hogs themselves, the actual shoot flame hogs, yeah, that can only be.
But I would love to see different varieties of units like that. That's what I meant to say. Is different varieties like that would be very cool.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that yeah, because like having the cryo hogs, that would be just super sick. What if Anders had, you know, her warthog have like, I don't know, like little sentinels follow it around and help it. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like a warthog, but it has like 2 sentinels that hover over it that shoot things or something like that. Just something to make it different. And there was a lot of different sentinels. You know, there was a sentinel that gave things shields. There's a sentinel that was offensive sentinel. There was a healing sentinel, like in Halo Wars 1. Like stuff like that made the maps unique. Like if you look at Labyrinth and you look at the little Sentinel Depot, like stuff like that was really cool. And I think that stuff like that is what needs to be in Halo Wars 3 to make the maps unique, to make them really cool and unique. I think that really all they did was make some maps. They slapped some power nodes on there for Halo Wars 2. It's like, and don't get me wrong, I think it's a fantastic game. I think they did a great job. But I think to go to the next level, I think we need to take those same maps and make them more unique, and then create new maps and build off of it. Make the new maps should try to be better and more unique. There should just be more going on than in the Halo Wars 2 maps that are currently available. But yeah, so I think does that wrap everything up?
You've covered it, man. Yeah.
All right.
That's just about everything.
Yeah. So if y'all could like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts and what you guys think that should be changed, or what, you know, different changes that should happen. Yeah, then hit me up, leave a comment. I read every single comment. So by all means, leave it to us and we will catch y'all in the next one.